It was a warm summer evening when Manhattan's Upper East Side seemed busier than usual, yet one small detail went unnoticed by most people. Near the Plaza Hotel's grand entrance, a 16-year-old girl stood nervously clutching a faded photograph and a worn envelope, like they were the only proof she existed in this world. Expensive cars pulled up, valets rushed around, and wealthy guests walked past in designer clothes without a single glance her way. Her name was Emma Clark, though the man she'd come to see had never bothered to learn it. She wore her best clothes, a simple dress from a thrift store that she'd carefully ironed that morning, and shoes that pinched her feet but looked presentable enough. Her hands trembled slightly as she watched limousines arrive, each one possibly carrying the person who could change her entire life. The photograph she held showed a much younger version of her mother, Catherine Clark, standing beside a handsome man in his 20s, both smiling at some college party. They looked happy, in love even. But that was 17 years ago, before Emma existed, before everything fell apart, before her mother had to raise a child alone while working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. That's when Richard Hastings, a powerful Wall Street executive and billionaire investor, stepped out of a black Mercedes S-Class, his presence commanding immediate attention from everyone around. He was exactly as Emma had seen in magazine photos and news articles, tall, impeccably dressed in a custom suit that probably cost more than her mother's annual rent, with an air of absolute confidence that came from never hearing the word no. Emma's heart raced. This was it, the moment she'd rehearsed 1,000 times in her mirror, the conversation she'd imagined since she was old enough to understand that other kids had fathers, and she didn't. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Mr. Hastings?" Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. Richard stopped, his expression shifting to polite annoyance, the look of a busy man interrupted by someone unimportant. "Yes, I'm running late for an event. If you need an autograph or a photo." "I'm Emma," she said quickly, before her courage disappeared entirely. "Emma Clark, Catherine Clark's daughter. You're your daughter." The words hung in the air between them like a grenade waiting to explode. For just a moment, maybe half a second, something flickered across Richard's face. Recognition, fear, guilt. But it vanished so quickly Emma wondered if she'd imagined it. "I don't know what you're talking about," Richard said coldly, his voice dropping to a tone that could freeze oceans. "I've never heard of any Catherine Clark, and I certainly don't have a daughter. Now if you'll excuse me." "Please." Emma thrust the photograph toward him with shaking hands. "Just look. It's you and my mom at Harvard. 17 years ago. She told me everything before she died last month." And in that moment, standing on one of New York's most expensive streets, surrounded by wealth and privilege, Richard Hastings made a choice that would define both their lives. He didn't look at the photograph. He didn't acknowledge the tears forming in Emma's eyes. He didn't see the desperate hope of a child who'd just lost her mother and was reaching out to the only family she had left. Instead, he signaled to his security guard, a large man who'd been standing discreetly nearby. "Remove this girl from the premises," Richard said flatly. "She's clearly confused or running some kind of scam. I don't know her, I don't know her mother, and I won't be harassed." It was a decision that should have ended everything, but fate had other plans. "Hey everyone, before we continue with this powerful story, I need to ask, where are you watching this video from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I love seeing our global community. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button because what happens next will absolutely shock you. Now let's continue." The security guard moved toward Emma, but she stepped back, clutching her photograph and envelope like shields. "I'm not leaving until you at least look at the picture. That's all I'm asking. Just look." "Young lady," the guard said, not unkindly, "you need to move along. Don't make this difficult." Richard had already turned away, dismissing her existence with the ease of someone who'd spent a lifetime ignoring inconvenient truths. He was halfway to the hotel entrance when Emma's voice rang out, louder this time, fueled by grief and desperation. "She loved you. Even after you left her pregnant and alone, even after you refused her calls, even after you sent lawyers with money to make the problem go away. She still loved you, and all I wanted was for you to know she died. That I exist. That's all. Several people stopped to stare. A few pulled out phones. In the age of social media, a public scene involving a billionaire could go viral within minutes. Richard froze. Not because of guilt or recognition, but because of calculation. His company was about to announce a major merger. His image as a family man and ethical businessman was crucial to maintaining investor confidence. A scandal, any scandal, could cost millions. He turned back, his expression controlled, but his jaw tight with anger. Security, escort miss. Clark, was it? Escort her inside to the conference room. Privately. Emma's hope flickered back to life. Maybe he just didn't want a scene. Maybe inside, away from cameras, he would listen. Maybe. The conference room was all marble and mahogany, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Richard stood by the window, his back to Emma, for a long moment before speaking. "How much?" he asked finally. "What? How much money do you want?" Richard turned to face her, pulling out a checkbook. "Is it 50,000? 100? Name your price for this, misunderstanding to disappear." Emma felt like she'd been slapped. "I don't want money. I want—" "Everyone wants money," Richard interrupted sharply. "That's how the world works. Your mother understood that. When she contacted me 17 years ago claiming to be pregnant, I did the responsible thing. I had my lawyers verify her claims, and yes, there was a situation. I offered her a substantial settlement, more than generous, on the condition she sign away any parental claims and never contact me again." "She refused your money," Emma whispered. "She told me. She wanted you to be a father, not a checkbook." "Then she was a fool." The words were brutal in their honesty. "I was 23, about to graduate from Harvard Business School, with opportunities that would have been destroyed by an unplanned pregnancy. I made the practical choice. I've built an empire worth billions. I've created thousands of jobs. I've donated millions to charity. What would I have accomplished tied down by a child I didn't want?" "You would have had a daughter," Emma said, tears streaming down her face now. "You would have had someone who loved you not because of your money or your power, but just because you were her dad." Richard's expression didn't change. "Sentiment is a luxury for people who can afford it. I couldn't then, and I won't start now. You say your mother died. I'm sorry for your loss. Truly. But that doesn't create a relationship between us that never existed." He wrote a check and placed it on the conference table. Emma could see the amount even from where she stood, $500,000. "This is more than fair," Richard continued. "It's enough to pay for college, set you up for life if you're smart with it. Take it. Sign the NDA my lawyers will prepare, and we both move forward. You get financial security. I get to avoid a messy situation that benefits no one." It was a test, though neither of them recognized it as such. A moment where Emma could choose the easy path, take the money, walk away, survive. After all, her mother had just died. She was about to age out of foster care with nowhere to go. $500,000 could change everything. Minutes passed. Emma stared at the check, then at the photograph of her young, hopeful mother who had believed in love over money. "No," Emma said quietly, leaving the check untouched. "I don't want your money. I wanted a father. But I see now that person doesn't exist." She turned to leave, but Richard's voice stopped her. "You'll regret this. That money could have been your future." Emma looked back, and for the first time since entering the room, she smiled, a sad, knowing smile that made her look years older. "My mom was right about you. She said if you'd been the kind of man who chose money over family, then we were better off without you. I didn't understand what she meant until now." At that moment, the test failed, or perhaps it revealed something far greater than either of them expected. Emma walked toward the door, her dignity intact even as her heart shattered. But as she reached for the handle, she remembered the envelope, the one her mother had given her on her deathbed with specific instructions. "Only give this to him if he refuses to acknowledge you. You'll know when." "Wait," Emma said, turning back. Her hands no longer trembled as she placed the envelope on the conference table beside the untouched check. "My mother wanted you to have this. She wrote it 2 days before she died." Richard stared at the envelope like it might contain poison. I'm not interested in. Then don't read it, Emma interrupted. I don't care anymore. I came here thinking maybe you changed, that maybe 17 years and all your success had given you wisdom. But you're still the same scared boy who ran away from responsibility. She walked out, leaving Richard alone with the envelope and his choices. For 5 minutes, he didn't move. Then, against every instinct, against every wall he'd built around his heart, he opened it. The letter was written in shaky handwriting, clearly from someone very ill. Dear Richard, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and Emma came to you. It also means you refused to acknowledge her, just as you refused me 17 years ago. I'm not writing to guilt you or beg. I made peace with your choice long ago. But there are things you should know. Emma is brilliant. She has your mind for numbers and strategy. By age 12, she was helping me budget our finances, finding ways to stretch every dollar. She taught herself coding and built a website that brought in extra income for us. She got straight A's while working part-time to help with bills. She's also kind. When our neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez was evicted, Emma gave her our couch and shared her meals without being asked. She volunteers at the food bank every Sunday. She dreams of starting a nonprofit to help single mothers, mothers like me. You asked me once why I refused your money. Here's why. I didn't want to raise a child who believed love could be bought. I didn't want Emma to grow up thinking she was a problem that needed solving with a check. And I was right. She grew up knowing her worth isn't measured in dollars, but in character. There's one more thing you should know, Richard. Something I never told you because I thought it didn't matter. But now, knowing I won't be here to protect her, I need you to understand. Emma has the same heart condition I had. The same genetic disorder that's killing me will eventually affect her. She'll need surgery in the next few years. It's expensive, more than any part-time job or scholarship can cover. I'm not asking you to be her father. That ship sailed long ago. But I'm asking you, as one human to another, to at least make sure she gets the medical care she'll need. Not as charity, as basic human decency. She doesn't know yet. I couldn't bring myself to tell her. But she'll find out soon. The symptoms are already starting. Do with this information what you will. I've learned I can't control your choices, only my own. Catherine Clark. P.S. There's a DNA test result in this envelope, too. I had it done last year when I got sick, thinking maybe proof would matter to you. It won't change who you are, but at least you'll know I'm not lying. Richard's hand shook as he pulled out the DNA test. Official, certified, impossible to dispute. The numbers confirmed what he tried to deny. Emma was his daughter. 99.9% certainty. The truth was revealed, but acceptance did not come easily. Because accepting the truth meant accepting 17 years of denial. 17 years during which his daughter grew up without a father. 17 years during which Catherine struggled alone. 17 years during which he could have been present, but chose profit instead. And now Catherine was dead, and Emma was sick, and all his billions couldn't turn back time. Richard sat in that conference room for 3 hours, the letter and DNA test before him, wrestling with a choice that shouldn't have been difficult, but terrified him nonetheless. Because for the first time in his adult life, Richard Hastings realized this was not a negotiation. It was fate catching up with him, demanding payment for debts he tried to forget. The truth was revealed, but acceptance did not come easily. Not for Richard, whose entire identity was built on control and calculated decisions, and not for Emma, who'd left the Plaza Hotel that night believing she was truly alone in the world. By the time Richard made up his mind and rushed out of the conference room, Emma was long gone. His security team had no information except that she'd walked out into the Manhattan night without looking back. Finding her took 3 days and the resources of several private investigators. She was staying at a youth shelter in Brooklyn, having aged out of the foster system just weeks after her mother's death. When Richard finally stood outside the shelter, watching through the window as Emma helped serve dinner to other homeless teens, he barely recognized the man he'd become. He'd built an empire by being ruthless, by cutting losses and moving forward without looking back. But this was different. He walked inside, and Emma looked up from the serving line. The hope that had been in her eyes 3 days ago was gone, replaced by wariness. "What do you want?" she asked flatly. To talk. Please. We already talked. You made yourself clear. Richard looked around at the shelter, underfunded, overcrowded, but filled with staff who clearly cared. Can we go somewhere private? Emma laughed bitterly. I don't have anywhere private. This is where I live now. Those words hit him like a physical blow. His daughter, and she was his daughter, he could no longer deny that, was homeless while he lived in a penthouse worth $30 million. I read your mother's letter, Richard said quietly. Emma's expression shifted, surprise, then anger. Good for you. Did it make you feel guilty? Did it change anything? Yes. The word came out barely above a whisper. It changed everything. I don't believe you. I don't blame you. Richard sat down at one of the shelter's worn tables, not caring that his suit looked absurdly out of place. Emma, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out. Can you give me that? After a long moment, Emma sat down across from him, her arms crossed defensively. When your mother told me she was pregnant 17 years ago, Richard began. I panicked. Not because I didn't care about her. I did, more than I wanted to admit, but because I was terrified. My father had been a failure, an alcoholic who abandoned us when I was 10. I grew up poor, watching my mother work 3 jobs. I swore I'd never be like him, never be trapped, never be weak. So you ran, Emma said, just like he did. Exactly like he did, Richard admitted. I became the thing I hated most. I convinced myself I was being practical, strategic, but I was just scared. Scared of failing. Scared of being trapped. Scared of loving something more than my ambitions. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth. Your mother did too, and I never gave it to her. Richard pulled out the letter, now wrinkled from being read dozens of times. She wrote that you're sick, the same condition she had. Emma's eyes widened. How did she? I only just found out from a free clinic last week. They said I need to see a specialist, but without insurance. I'll take care of it, Richard said immediately. The best doctors, the best treatment, whatever you need. I don't want your guilt money. It's not guilt money. It's... Richard stopped, struggling for words that didn't come easily to a man who'd spent decades avoiding emotional honesty. It's what a father should do. What I should have been doing for 17 years. You're not my father, Emma said, but her voice cracked. A father shows up. A father doesn't wait until his daughter is sick and desperate before deciding she's worth his time. The words were knives, each one deserved. You're right, Richard said. I'm not your father. I haven't earned that title, but I'm asking, begging, for the chance to try. Not to replace what you lost. Not to erase what I've done, but to be present from now on. Why now? Because the letter made you feel bad? Because ignoring a sick daughter is worse PR than ignoring a healthy one? Because I'm tired, Richard whispered. I'm tired of winning at business and losing at everything that actually matters. I'm tired of being the kind of man who can buy anything except the things money can't buy. Time, trust, family. Emma stared at him, tears forming despite her best efforts to stay strong. My mom loved you. Even after everything, even when she was dying, she still kept that photograph. She still told me stories about the Richard she remembered, the one who was kind before he got scared. She deserved better than I gave her. Yes, she did. And so do you. That night wasn't about money, though Richard would spend plenty of it in the months to come. It was about presence. Listening. Really listening to the daughter, who had every right to slam the door on him, but was brave enough to leave it slightly open. It was about apologizing for sins that couldn't be undone but might, somehow, through action and time, be forgiven. For the first time, the wealthy man understood that success means nothing if you abandon the people who need you most. Time passed, and lives changed in ways neither Richard nor Emma could have predicted. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a fairy tale where a single conversation fixed 17 years of absence. Real healing required patience, therapy, and the willingness to fail and try again. Richard's first action was ensuring Emma's medical care. He flew in specialists from Johns Hopkins and the Mayo Clinic. Emma's heart condition was serious, but treatable with surgery and careful management. The procedure was scheduled within weeks, and Richard was there, in the waiting room, pacing like any terrified father would. When Emma woke up from surgery, groggy and confused, the first person she saw was Richard, asleep in the chair beside her bed, still wearing the same clothes from the day before. "You stayed," she whispered. He woke instantly. "Of course I stayed. Did you think I'd leave?" "I didn't know. I'm here. I'll keep being here, as long as you'll let me." It was a start. Over the following months, they navigated the awkward territory of building a relationship from nothing. Emma moved into one of Richard's properties, not the penthouse, which felt too overwhelming, but comfortable apartment where she could have independence while knowing support was nearby. Richard didn't try to be an instant father. Instead, he showed up to her follow-up medical appointments, to her first day at a new school where she wouldn't have to work part-time just to survive, to her therapy sessions where they worked through complicated feelings about Catherine's death and Richard's abandonment. He learned about her life, really learned, how she loved coding and mathematics, how she dreamed of starting a nonprofit to help single mothers, just as Catherine had written, how she missed her mother every single day but was trying to find a way forward through the grief. Emma learned about him too, not the billionaire from news articles, but the man behind the image, the one who'd grown up poor and angry, the one who'd built walls so thick around his heart that he'd forgotten how to feel, the one who was, slowly and painfully, learning that vulnerability wasn't weakness. 6 months after that night at the Plaza Hotel, Richard did something unprecedented. He stepped down as CEO of his company, remaining as chairman but delegating daily operations. When the business media demanded to know why, he gave an answer that shocked Wall Street. "I have 17 years of fatherhood to make up for. That's more important than any merger or acquisition." Emma didn't learn about this from Richard. She read about it in the New York Times. When she confronted him, he simply said, "You're the best investment I've ever made, and I'm not missing any more of your life." A year after their first meeting, Emma started college at MIT, her first choice, fully funded, but she'd earned her acceptance through her own merit. Richard attended family weekend, awkwardly trying to connect with other parents who'd been doing this for years. "You'll get better at it," Emma told him, not unkindly, as they walked across campus. "I hope so. I'm still figuring this out." "So am I." She stopped walking and looked at him seriously. "I don't know if I can ever call you Dad." Maybe the word died with the man who should have been there from the beginning. Richard nodded, trying not to let the hurt show. "But," Emma continued, "I think I can call you Richard. And maybe, eventually, that can mean something just as important, just different." "I'll take it," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll take whatever you're willing to give. Because sometimes, the smallest hands carry the biggest lessons. And sometimes, redemption doesn't mean erasing the past. It means facing it honestly and choosing to do better with whatever time remains." The child found safety, healing, education, and a complicated form of family. The man found purpose, humility, and the kind of success that actually mattered. This story isn't about wealth or poverty. It's about the choices we make when faced with inconvenient truths. It's about children who teach adults what love really means. It's about second chances we don't deserve but receive anyway, and what we do with them. Emma never forgot her mother. She started the nonprofit Catherine had dreamed of, using Richard's resources, but Catherine's vision. It helped hundreds of single mothers get the support they needed: healthcare, childcare, job training. Every woman they helped was a tribute to Catherine Clark, who'd done it alone and shouldn't have had to. And Richard, he learned that being a father wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up. It was about listening. It was about putting someone else's needs above his own ego. The journey wasn't easy. They still argued. They still had days where the weight of lost years felt too heavy. But they kept trying, kept showing up for each other, kept choosing connection over convenience. Because that's what family does. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something real, hit that like button right now. If you believe stories like this can remind us what truly matters, subscribe to this channel. More powerful stories are coming. You don't want to miss them. Now here's my question for you. What would you have done in Richard's situation? If a child appeared claiming to be yours after 17 years, would you have acknowledged them immediately? Would you have refused like Richard did? And if you were Emma, would you have given him a second chance?